Hello and welcome to the 1Q podcast by Blueprint, where we discuss what we think is the next wave of innovation for technology and businesses. This is a podcast where we ask our guests the one burning question about the future of digital transformation. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the 1Q podcast by Blueprint, where we talk about what is new and innovative for technology and businesses in today's world. On today's show, we have Romi Mahajan. Romi, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Ryan. First of all, very happy to be here. I'm a marketer by background, worked at a bunch of big companies and with startups as well, and I'm super happy to be here at Blueprint Technologies. And right now, I'm focused on two things here. One is developing business for the company, but really, in some ways, more passionately, specializing on the retail sector. As it resurges, we want to help with that process.
Yeah, Romi's our voice of everything marketing and everything retail, kind of the C-level advisory as well for the future of technology in those spaces. What's the biggest thing you're passionate about in the marketing and retail space right now?
You know, when I look at retail, I always get sort of thrown off by what I read in the press, right? We hear about the retail apocalypse. We hear about Armageddon. Then when I look at the statistics, I say, $6 trillion in retail in the United States last year. Some retailers doing very well, others not doing well. New brands developing all the time. So from my perspective, technology and innovation can really help retail research and sort of regrow. And we do need to also win back the hearts and minds of people, because I think a lot of them are quite negative on retail.
Yeah, you've been very vocal about that, about, there's a lot of people that say that retail as we know it is dead, and you have kind of a contrary opinion that you think it's more, in a lot of aspects, it's more relevant today than ever. So we'll get right to the 1Q of the day. So with that in mind, what area of technology should retailers invest in today? That is the next big thing for enabling the retail experience, the customer experience that you say is that important for companies that have a heavy investment in brick and mortar retail.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great question, right? Because ultimately we can lament the problem all the time, and we have to figure out what do we do about it, right? I do think that the general set of cloud technologies are really incredibly important for retail. Most retailers, for a variety of reasons, including cost or antiquated, sort of employees and so on and so forth, really haven't made investments in innovative technologies. They think about good enough too often. They think about legacy too often. This is a new world, right? Consumer behavior changes all the time. Supply chains change all the time. We're in a globalized world. We're also in a world in which we're really moving in internet time. And most retailers have a very sort of slower pace. So they have not harmonized their way of being with what the market needs today. The cloud, when it comes to supply chain, when it comes to customer experience, when it comes to the management of data, offers the type of agility that they need, right, to really move into sort of the 21st century. Retailers have been historically, in some ways, laggards when it comes to technology. They've really relied on good enough for too long. And if we can impart one thing to them, from Blueprint's perspective, it's that they don't need to be riding others' coattails. They need to be at the forefront of this incredible motion towards the cloud.
So, and we had Tom Taylor a little while ago on the podcast, and he talked about really enabling that customer experience in the actual store. But aside, kind of when you talk about people needing to leverage cloud to their advantage.
Yes.
More specifically, for most customers out there, most people who own are in charge of retailers, that kind of is a amorphous concept, right? How can they leverage it to improve the customer experience?
Absolutely. So I think there are many different levels at which there are germane answers to that question. First of all, if you think about people within the retail establishment or within the corporate headquarters, people who manage the supply chain, people who manage the actual products getting from the manufacturer to the store, those people need to work in real time. They need to work it with agility. So there have to be back-end systems based on the cloud that allow them wherever they are to be able to look at their worldwide systems with one snapshot, right? So they need systems that don't require every change to go through IT. So they need, again, the cloud for that. Now look at the front-facing employees, right? They need to confer an experience both digitally and physically to their both current and prospective consumers. And what better way to do that than through clever offers, right, through creating digital transformation in the physical world. The basis of that has to be a platform that moves quickly, right? That actually processes computing quickly, and therefore the cloud in all of its various manifestations. So if it comes to backend systems, to CRM systems, or to customer experience and website systems, the cloud matters. Now take in-store tech, Ryan, right? That's a huge area of investment. What do people do in-store that actually helps them be more, let's say, better customers, better consumers? Again, in-store tech cannot be this kind of on-premise, slow to process, non-experiential technology.
The biggest question I hear from most of our customers are whether or not we know of a good, an actual point-of-sale system that works.
Right. Point-of-sale systems, right? If you think about them, if they're not agile and if they don't process fast, how do you create higher transactions, right? So you do see antiquated stores moving everything very slowly, right? And that's really not the name of the game anymore. Speed is the name of the game. Speed and scale. What we think that we bring to this is not only the technology components of that speed and scale, but the process and people components as well.
So let me ask you a question then. In most retailers are feeling a lot of pressure from the internet speed at which things are moving, and it's affecting them all the way from the supply chain all the way to the customer experience. Do you think there's any way that retailers will get to the point where technology is not actually involved in the front end of their business at all, that it'll just be kind of a thing that works and powers their business? Think about a world with no point of sale system where it's just humans interacting with human beings.
Absolutely. I think ideally that would be great, right? Ideally, technology to the extent that it exists would be invisible. As they've always said about IT, right? The best IT is quiet IT, where you can just go and indulge in the experience and worry less about the artifacts and the hardware that gets you there, right? We're still a long way off from that, but we're with technologies like Azure, with technologies like what Amazon has on the back end, with the ability to have beacons and a variety of other computing pieces on your smartphone, and with the ubiquity of devices, we might be at a stage, right, where you can walk in, walk out, without really dealing with anything but an incredibly charming and helpful person, right? The technology is not a constraint. That said, we still have to make sure that process is not a constraint for these people, right?
Do you think everybody needs to be thinking like creating an Amazon Go type of experience though, where you remove the technology friction? Is that really where things are going? Would you give that advice to retailers, or is there a different way to think about it?
I would say it's not an all or none situation, right? That I do think that there's too much binary. There's a binary view of this. I do think that technology enables human agency, and great humans actually benefit from technology. So there's a combination of technology and humans and that experience that I think renders the ultimate omni-channel experience. Consumers will buy, search, and experiment in a variety of different channels, right? And we have to make sure that our plans accord to each one of those channels. So the Amazon Go experience, while I've heard is interesting, I have not experienced it myself, I think is one end of the spectrum. But in reality, most retail is ordinary people going into ordinary stores to fulfill a need, right? And that's where the $6 trillion comes from. Not 100 million, not a billion, but $6 trillion. Yeah. Almost 25% of the gross domestic product of the country is traversed through retail.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's the quiet technology enabling the human experience. That's
absolutely,
awesome.
Absolutely.
Cool, Romi. Thank you for coming on the podcast today. Romi's got a lot of different social media channels out there and is very highly viewed for his opinion. Where can people get in touch with you or find out more about your different perspectives on things?
Thanks, Ryan, for saying that. I feel very flattered. Romi@bpcs.com. Ping me. Find me on LinkedIn. Find me on Twitter. But really, ping me on email. Let's have a real dialogue.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody, for listening. This is the 1Q podcast with Blueprint, where we discuss the next wave of innovation for technology and businesses. Thanks for coming on, Romi.
Thanks so much, Ryan.